Now let's start with the big story this week, the big talking point. Nathan Jones has lost his first 4 league matches since coming in. So is 4 matches too early to admit that you've made a mistake? Going to start with a comment from our Facebook page, which is Matt Prince, who says, loves the show, which is always a good way to start a comment. Highlight of my week, driving across the Northwest. I've never seen such a pathetic display as the performances under Jones. We've been well and truly sold down the river by the board, and they haven't even got the backbone to apologise for recent events. We've certainly got the identity that Jones was banging on about in his first interview, and that's a championship identity. Glenn, I'm going to come to you first this evening on this one. How do you sum up the last week since we last spoke and your feelings towards the manager?
Well, the game on Wednesday, I couldn't think of a worse performance. I'm including the 2 9-0s. I can't think of a comparable performance right back to the last game that Ian Branfoot was in charge, which was, I think, January 94. We played Ipswich at home and there were 9,000 people there. Saints fans, as a rule, we're not very militant, but 9,000 in a 15,000 capacity Dell at the time was the time that it all went horribly wrong. That game was against Ipswich. We lost 1-0, and we basically smashed the ball up the park for 90 minutes and lost. And there was deja vu for me watching that game on Wednesday. It's the most pathetic attempt at playing football that you could possibly imagine. And as far as Jones is concerned, what he said after the game is he basically distilled the game down to 2 incidents, which was Shay Adams missing a chance in the 6th minute and Lianco making a mistake. That was it. And he totally failed to address the 90 minutes of absolute dross that was served up. Clueless dross. We were never going to score. And it was just hopeless. Personally, I saw enough in the Brighton game to say, it's time to admit we've made a mistake here. I just don't get it. It's an incongruous appointment on all sorts of levels. We're a team full of young players, so young players need guidance. We've taken young players from, academies, Manchester City's academy. So imagine being Romeo Lavia. He's our poster boy now, and he's gone from Pep Guardiola training, pass, move, all this sort of stuff, to watching the ball getting smashed over his head for 90 minutes. It's just garbage. There's so many reasons, and from what you see, 95% of people seem to have come to the same conclusion. This is not what it's about. This isn't going to work at Premier League level, and it just seems like a colossal error. And Sports Republic have turned the attention very much on themselves with the appointment. I don't have any great personal problem with Nathan Jones. He's a man that's been promoted beyond his capabilities, as far as I'm concerned. The issue is with the owners and why on earth they thought this guy was going to be right for the club. And it's just, the win against Palace makes no difference to me. I'm very confused as to why we were smashing the ball against Forest and we were trying to play against Palace. Okay, we weren't great, but we were trying to play. So either Nathan Jones has given up his entire football philosophy in 2 days, which I find highly unlikely, or there's been some outside influence, or the players have turned around and said, this isn't the way we're going to play. I don't know. But either way, he has to go as far as I'm concerned. And it's going to take a hell of a lot. And I don't think I can sit through enough games for him to change my mind.
That's 2 of us that agree. Steve, are you going to make it 3? Is there a way out of this? Can you turn it around?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the way out of it is with results. If you end up getting some wins under your belt and we miraculously pull clear of the bottom 3, then all of a sudden, the end justifies the means to many people. It's one of those. I'm not 100%. I necessarily fall into that category. I think I would want to see some sort of progress in terms of having a cohesive strategy, because Glenn says, lumping it up into the air and hoping for the best. I mean, but apparently we put in 75 long balls on Wednesday night. It's like, how is that even possible? I mean, I don't think I don't think even in like Sunday league games I played there would have been that many. And it's like, how have you managed to instruct supposedly Premier League level footballers that this is in their and the team's best interests? It's mental. And yeah, I mean, I think the problem he already has is one of not just PR, but it's getting people on side, because he's clearly already lost a significant part of the fan base. The toxic atmosphere at the Forest game on Wednesday demonstrated that. I think away from home, I think those who go away will always naturally, rightly or wrongly, give the team a little bit more leeway. But even on Selhurst Park, you had plenty of dissent from the crowd at various points with a few of the songs that were coming out. So it's not as if we've turned a corner and we've won a game against an equally dreadful Palace side, and we've taken advantage of a couple of defensive screw ups for once, and all of a sudden everything's going to be all right, because it's not. We're going to go into this game on Wednesday against Man City, whose reserves just went and thumped Chelsea 4-0. And I mean, God knows how that's going to end. I mean, if we keep the score down to anything respectable, I think people will be kind of relieved just to get out of there. But I mean, if it gets proper ugly, then I mean that's then going to be 2 home games in the space of a week, where the atmosphere has been just bile, and the guy's been in the dugout for less than a month, really. He'll have had what 3 home league games? No, sorry, 2 home league games, 2 home cup games, and not really at any of them has there been kind of sort of a groundswell of support. Even at the Brighton games, it was very early on in that game where everything started turning sour. So when the home support isn't behind you even that early, and the atmosphere is that toxic, given kind of the run of form we had before Hasenhüttl was sacked, and things never got as bad in the stands as it has already now, I still think you're kind of fighting a losing battle almost from the start. I think, but it's a case of whether Sport Republic see that. I mean, maybe they see it, but also that they think, well, I've made this decision now. I've got to stick with it and see it out, because otherwise I end up looking like a mug. But I mean, if we take Rasmus Hankerson as the kind of chief architect of this, he obviously left Brentford just over a year ago to come and join up with Sport Republic and come and work for us. He was co-director of football at Brentford. They have not sought to replace him. The guy that was his co-director of football is now just director of football. So that suggests they're quite happy with the work that he was doing, and not really looking to replace the work that Rasmus was doing, which I think kind of paints a slightly different picture on how Ankerson was portrayed by various people sort of during his spell at Brentford. So maybe he's not quite the genius that everyone seems to have been making him out to be.
And Jacob, Steve mentions the crowd there. That was, if I remember, that was quite a key turning point for me when we knew that Ralph had to go, when the crowd were turning on him and getting on his back. To be fair, Wednesday was the worst I've ever seen in terms of the atmosphere. And by the way, I think that was correct. A lot of people venting a lot of anger. But we could have, the Lincoln game wasn't great, was it? We were expecting to see something. We were just blown away by how shambolic that was. So this isn't just a reaction to the game on Wednesday. This is the 4 or 5 games that we've seen, and the way he conducts himself as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's helped himself in his post-match press conferences, and bearing in mind that he's not actually had a full pre-match press conference since pre-Lincoln. So imagine if he had pre-match press conferences, in the other games, that may have even worsened matters. But I think Southampton fans, they can accept losing. They're quite used to losing, but they need to see some sort of progression, some sort of, framework. and there's been nothing. Nathan Jones spent 4 weeks during the World Cup break bedding in the players, bedding in his philosophy. And every time you ask him or you try and see it on the pitch, the main thing he keeps saying is that he's got a shape that he wants to play, but he can't play it yet. And that completely contradicts the alignment that Sport Republic want. They say that Nathan Jones came in because he fits the players that they've currently got. He fits a profile of players they've currently got. And Nathan Jones, now going into this window, wants experience. He wants 5 centre-backs. He undoubtedly wants to play a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, whatever you want to call it. And he keeps mentioning that he wants his team to be aggressive on the front foot. But apart from Adam Armstrong yesterday, who broke ranks and pressed Guaita, they don't press either. So fans can't even get excited about that. I think with Arsenal, especially at the start, Southampton would lose games quite heavily, but there always seems to be a plan. There always seems to be, we're going to stick to this no matter what. Jones has been to and fro in. I think I saw one in the comments saying that he's changed the system 8 times in 3 games. I make it 10 times in 3 games. I think it's quite bizarre. I think the Brighton game was really damaging for him because he got tactically outclassed by De Zerbi. Changed shape 5 times, and De Zerbi just kept with the same shape, same false 9, and played him off the park. And I think Forest was harrowing because Forest was dropping deeper. Steve Cooper told his players at half time to drop deeper, and Southampton, for some reason, didn't work out on the pitch that they've got to stop these long balls, and that comes from the management.
Forest
but it comes
terrible as well.
Yeah, and it comes from the coaches as well. Chris Cohen, his assistant's been sitting in the stands for a few games. He comes to sit next to Nathan Jones for other games. It doesn't just seem to be any stability in shape, in anything.
Who's the coach who hasn't even got the coaching badge?
Alan Sheehan.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, what's all that about? What is all that about?
That's the thing. He's a set piece coach now, isn't he? And that was Ruben Sellers' domain. And Sellers spent the first part of the season overhauling the defensive system. Okay, it didn't work, but Southampton were getting trained. Southampton were getting trained into sitting in the deep shape from wide set pieces and stuff. And now Sheehan's come in. Sellers has had his job remit completely changed. I'm not sure what it is now. And they're defending a completely different way. And players may like him. They may say his man management is good. But I think it's obvious at the moment that there's a lack of clarity and the players don't really know what their remit is.
And Glenn, what have you made of him as a person? And to me, there seems to be that arrogance at the moment, and that's what I think annoyed me after Wednesday, because we had the reaction from the crowd, and then in the clip that they shared on social media, so we gifted him a goal, which created a poor mood here, and almost kind of like threw his eyes as to outside. It surprises me a little, but that's their prerogative. I think was something else he came out with, and I can't preempt what the fans are going to do. That's entirely up to them. It was almost like it's. I don't know why they're booing me. I don't know what this reaction is.
Yeah, what was it? With all due respect, he's from a Welsh mining village. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff he's come out with has been unbelievable. But apparently, he's well known for not really taking any responsibility. Not really admitting that what he's done hasn't worked, and that's what I was getting at the start with the, just basically distilling that Forest game down to 2 incidents and not talking about the absolute dross that we served up. I don't like him. In the short answer to the question, I don't like him. I don't like his character. I don't like the way he comes across. In his first couple of interviews before we played any matches, he spoke about his high pressing football and being aggressive and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, blah blah blah, all good stuff. And I remember saying at the time, talk is cheap. You've got to actually walk the walk, and we're not walking anywhere apart from down in the Championship. We're just playing football like that is not going to get you anywhere. And it might work in the Championship, might work in League One, it might work with a 6'8" striker. None of these things are relevant at the moment. And I feel sorry for Che Adams. I mean, he has a go at Che Adams for missing a chance, but if you were any striker in the world would snatch at any chance they had if they only got one decent pass every 3 games and spent the rest of the game squinting up at the floodlights with a 6'7" defender behind you, which is basically what Che Adams is doing at the moment. It's horrible. But hey, I'm not here to slag someone off on a personal level, but I don't think he helps himself, and he seems to think he doesn't need to be liked. Now, to an extent, that's true, but fans really have got to buy into what you're doing. Otherwise, as Steve says, you end up with this toxic atmosphere, which is horrible. And we all saw it coming after, I think someone said on the podcast, after the Lincoln game and the Brighton game, imagine what it's going to be like if we're losing to Forest in the last 10 minutes. And it was just horrible. And the first 20 minutes against Palace were horrible as well. And then the fluke goal that we got seemed to, the players sort of pepped up, if you like, and just seemed to revert to. It's almost like they said, we're not going to lump it anymore. We're going to pass the ball. That's what it seemed like to me. I just can't see that instruction having come from Jones. And there were bits of his interview after the game against Palace where you thought, well, you could, in other circumstances, feel a bit sorry for him. He was saying he'd had a really tough week. Good. And, he was sort of defending his style of football. It's very difficult not to talk about what the fans are actually chanting. I think everyone knows. But he was defending his style of football. But you can't defend it. The more you try and defend that style of football, just smashing the ball out the park.
Well, actually, other teams have found out that actually you can defend it very easily.
Defend it very easily. Yes.
Steve, we've got a question from Tim Ross, who's on Facebook. He says, as a 100% Ralph fan, I have to ask the contributor to TSP, given the change in performance has not been for the better since he left, were Saints under Ralph a poor team playing above their level or a good team held back by a tired manager? I don't want to get too much into the Ralph thing, but do you think some of this is not necessarily down to the new manager? He's dealing with a squad which has not been performing consistently. There was that stat this week that of all the Premier League and EFL teams, I think they worked out what the average point score was. We were something like 90th out of 92. So it can't all lay at his door, can it?
It doesn't, but bearing in mind how bad everyone was claiming it was in those sort of last days under Ralph, and Nathan Jones has come in and said, "Hold my beer," and it's genuinely, you kind of, like, a lot of people said, well, how can it possibly get any worse? Just appoint anybody, and we've sort of seen an able demonstration of what happens when you literally just appoint anybody. Like apparently the metric. Because obviously we know that Sports Republic are big on their analytics and their stats and stuff. And apparently the metric that obviously not to do down Glen's spreadsheet. The one that Glen leaked. Glen's spreadsheet of wonder from his blog. If you've not seen it, go and check it out, please, because it's brilliant. But apparently the metric that basically swung it for them in terms of picking Jones as the guy they wanted to go for was that he kind of scored best on improving players relative to the budget given. I mean, how the hell you quantify something like that? God only knows. But that was apparently what he came out on top of. I mean, they presumably didn't look at whether his teams were able to pass the ball functionally to their own teammates, whether they were able to defend set pieces, whether central defenders were just making random mistakes, just wandering off 20 yards from goal every 5 minutes. It's like, well, how like, I don't think, like, if you put a list of 20 potential candidates in for that job and chucked, it's like when you see these identity parades on US crime shows, and they put in like a sort of put them in the ID parade and stuff, and put like one person in there who's actually supposedly done the crime, and you put like 20 other complete randomers, and you look at it and you think, well, who's going to pick Nathan Jones out of that lineup of candidate managers who might potentially do a job as a Premier League manager? Nobody would pick
Never
him.
mind the Buzzcocks, isn't it? Ryan does make a good point. He says, I dread to think who was our second choice if he was the first.